Your phone buzzes. You look before you decide to look. It isn't them. You flip it face down anyway, and you already know you'll check again in 3 minutes. Maybe you replay the last thing they said. Why does one buzz do that to you? That small, embarrassing flicker of hope, the one you can't quite control, that's not new. It feels like it belongs to this exact person, this exact moment. It doesn't. The real answer is far stranger than a crush. Right now, while you wait, a structure deep in your brain called the ventral tegmental area is lighting up. The neuroscientist Helen Fisher put people into an MRI scanner, showed them a photo of the person they couldn't stop thinking about, and watched that region fire the same way it fires for a drug. Not similar to a drug, the same circuitry. So what is this, really? Not fate. Not romance, exactly. It's evolution, running on you right now, whether you asked for it or not. Doesn't that change how the buzzing feels? Here's what almost nobody tells you at 14. This isn't one system, it's at least 3, stacked on top of each other, and they didn't evolve together or for the same person. Lust is one. Falling, the obsessive part, is another. Staying is a third. Can you feel all 3 pulling at once some days? You can feel deep attachment to one person and sudden lust for a stranger in the same week, and none of that makes you broken. It makes you exactly what you were built to be. Ever wonder why heartbreak feels physically like withdrawal? Why you check their name in your messages at 2 a.m. like you're chasing a substance out of your system? Now you know why it does. You're not weak. You're going through a chemical process with a name. But naming the system isn't explaining it. What specifically took a walking ape and turned it into a species that writes love songs? For that, you have to go back. Not centuries. Millions of years. 4.4 million years ago, a small-brained creature called Ardipithecus ramidus was already changing in one strange way. Its fossil teeth tell the story. In most primates, males carry long, blade-like canines, weapons for fighting rivals over females. Ardipithecus males didn't. Their canines had shrunk down close to female size already. What could have possibly disarmed them that early? Something had removed the need to fight over mates long before tools, long before fire, long before anything you'd call culture. The anthropologist Owen Lovejoy built a whole theory on that one detail called the provisioning model. His claim is strange. Walking upright, he argued, didn't just free the hands for tools. It freed them for carrying food back to one bonded mate instead of fighting for her. Bipedalism might be a side effect of monogamy, not the other way around. Do you feel how far back this goes? How much older it is than any love song you know? And you haven't reached the strange part yet. Because if feeding a mate was the deal, there should be a clear signal for when to deliver. There isn't. Humans are one of the only primates whose females don't visibly announce ovulation. Baboons swell up, bright red, unmistakable. You don't. And nothing about your body flags the 1 week a month reproduction is even possible. So why hide the one signal that should matter most? For decades, biologists assumed it hid fertility, so a mate would stay all month instead of leaving after sex. A newer theory says the opposite. Researchers modeling ancestral human groups found stronger evidence that concealed ovulation evolved to hide fertility from other women, not from men, cutting down violence between females competing for resources. Your own body might be quietly encrypted, and the reason might have nothing to do with romance at all. It's still running, right now, under whatever outfit you picked this morning, under whatever profile photo you agonized over. The same silent system your ancestors carried is deciding things you'll never consciously vote on. Strange to think your own biology runs a security clearance, isn't it? You've felt the addiction. You've seen the arms race over teeth, food, and hidden fertility. So what actually welds two people together once they've found each other? What's the one word underneath all of this? Oxytocin, along with a lesser-known partner called vasopressin. This is where the proof gets specific, and it didn't come from humans first. It came from a small rodent. The researcher Sue Carter studied prairie voles, one of the rare mammals that pair for life, and found that blocking oxytocin after mating stopped a female vole from bonding to her partner completely. Give her the hormone artificially with no mating at all, and she'll bond to a male she's never touched. The wiring is that direct. Prairie voles carry oxytocin and vasopressin receptors clustered in the brain's reward circuitry, the same circuitry lighting up in Fisher's scans of humans in love. Their close cousins, meadow voles, share almost the same brain and the same hormone, and never pair bond at all. So what's actually different between a species that mates for life and one that doesn't? Not the chemical. It's where the receptors happen to sit. Feel that right now, reading this. That circuitry is active in you this second, single or not, phone face down or face up. It doesn't switch off just because you're not currently in love. You'd expect a system this old to leave evidence behind. It did, and it's stranger than a lab result. In 2007, near Mantua, Italy, archaeologists opened a Neolithic grave almost 6,000 years old. Two skeletons lay face to face, arms wrapped around each other, frozen mid-embrace since roughly 4,000 BCE. Both were about 20. Who arranges a burial like that by accident? A similar find in Iran at a site called Hasanlu produced two skeletons locked together so tightly the world nicknamed them the Hasanlu lovers, seemingly mid-kiss for 2,800 years. Except later analysis complicated the romance. Both skeletons, it turns out, were likely male, and researchers now admit they may never have been lovers at all. Just two people who died together and were preserved that way by chance. Notice how badly you wanted that one to be true. What does that say about you rather than about them? And here's the part that should really unsettle you. The anthropologist William Jankowiak surveyed 168 cultures around the world to check something you'd assume was universal, romantic, sexual kissing, mouth on mouth, the thing you picture the moment someone says the word love. It showed up in less than half of them, fewer than half. Something you'd swear was hardwired into every human alive turns out to be optional, a habit some cultures never developed at all. So which parts of what you feel are truly ancient biology? And which parts did you just pick up from the people around you, the movies you watched, the couples you grew up copying? You may never be fully sure again. Here's a text you can't wait to check, 6,000 years early. At a Bronze Age site in Spain called La Almoloya, ancient DNA from a joint grave proved what bones alone never could. The two buried together weren't parent and child, and they weren't siblings. They were unrelated partners, and children genetically linked to both were buried close by. That's not folklore. That's genetic proof of something like a nuclear family. 4,000 years before anyone wrote the word marriage down. It goes back further still. Genetic testing on 34,000-year-old remains from Sunghir in what's now Russia found something almost bureaucratic for people you'd picture wearing furs and chasing mammoths. Would you expect fur-clad mammoth hunters to have dating rules? They weren't inbreeding. They were running deliberate mating networks between distant groups, trading partners across dozens of miles, an early unspoken set of marriage rules to keep bloodlines healthy. Long before agriculture, before writing, before cities, someone had already worked out who you were and weren't allowed to fall for. So if the wiring is this old, this deliberate, why does it ever fail? Why does someone you know, maybe even you, rearrange an entire life around one person and then, a few years in, feel almost nothing at all? Here's the twist, and it should bother you a little. Fisher didn't only scan brains. She pulled United Nations demographic records from 62 different societies, cultures with almost nothing else in common, and mapped exactly when divorce peaks. Everyone assumes the 7-year itch. The data says 4. Across those cultures, separations cluster hardest around year 4, close to the length of time it takes to carry one hunter-gatherer child through its most helpless stretch of infancy. Could your own timeline be running on that same quiet clock? The uncomfortable implication is that your attachment system may not be built for a lifetime at all. It might be built for a project with a rough completion date, and everything past that point is you, and effort, and choice, doing work your biology never promised to finish. Does that make lasting love fake? Not exactly. It might make it something harder and more impressive than biology alone ever guaranteed. Even that isn't the whole picture. The anthropologist Blaffer Hrdy spent decades arguing humans were never built around the couple alone. Her research points to something she calls cooperative breeding, grandmother's sisters, unrelated allies, whole networks of what she calls alloparents, splitting the impossible cost of raising a slow, helpless human infant. Were you ever really meant to do this with just one other person? In her view, the couple was never the entire structure. It was one load-bearing wall inside something much bigger. So here's a question worth sitting with. If pair bonding is millions of years old and marriage is thousands of years old, how new is the idea you're actually chasing right now? Newer than you think. The historian Stephanie Coontz has traced how, for most of recorded history, marrying for love was considered reckless, even dangerous, a threat to property and family alliances, rather than the point of the arrangement. Marrying because you were swept away by dopamine and oxytocin, the way you're half hoping to right now, only became the expected norm across the West within roughly the last 200 years. So which is the real you, the ancient circuitry, or the 2-century-old script? You're trying to satisfy a several million-year-old survival circuit using a 200-year-old cultural expectation on a decades-old piece of hardware in your pocket. No wonder it feels complicated. Which brings this back to your phone, face down, buzzing again. That flicker of hope isn't proof you've found the one. It isn't proof of nothing either. It's a several million-year-old survival mechanism, still fully operational, lighting up the same reward circuitry that once bonded a small-brained ancestor to the one person who'd carry food back to her. It doesn't know your phone is a phone. It doesn't know the difference between a hunter-gatherer camp and a group chat. It only knows its job, and its job was never to last forever. It was only ever built to get you far enough. So the next time you feel it, the stomach drop when a name appears on your screen, the quiet panic when it doesn't, can you name it instead of drowning in it? That's dopamine doing exactly what it evolved to do. That's oxytocin quietly starting to stitch you to another person without asking permission. None of it is proof of forever, and none of it is proof of nothing. Whatever you build past that point, the part that outlasts the 4-year clock running quietly inside you, isn't biology finishing the job for you. That's you, choosing again and again to keep doing something your ancestors' wiring only ever promised to start.